Welcome to Courage and Consciousness. This is a panel discussion on how courage is an integral part of raising our consciousness. This is inspired by the filmmaker Bill Bennett's new series, Facing Fear. My name is Trina Wyatt, and I am the founder and CEO of Conscious Good, also See Good TV, which is a community-driven media platform where entertainment fuels personal growth and collective transformation. I am honored to facilitate tonight's discussion and to introduce our esteemed panelists. First, let me introduce Dr. Bruce Lipton. Bruce is a pioneer in new biology and an internationally recognized leader in bridging science and spirit. Bruce is a cell biologist by training and was on the faculty of the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine, later performed groundbreaking stem cell research at Stanford University School of Medicine. He is the best-selling author of The Biology of Belief, The Honeymoon Effect, and co-author with Steve Bhaerman of Spontaneous Evolution. Bruce received the 2009 prestigious Goi Peace Award from Japan in honor of his scientific contribution to world harmony. Welcome, Bruce.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, I'm very pleased to welcome Sister Dr. Jenna. She is the founder and director of the Brahma Kumari's Meditation Museum in the metropolitan Washington, D.C. area, and she hosts the America Meditating radio show. Sister Jenna serves as one of the evolutionary leaders in service to conscious evolution and was selected by Empower a Billion Women 2020 as one of the 100 most influential leaders of 2015. She's a recipient of the President's Lifetime National Community Service Award, and she has an album that was produced by Grammy Award winner Ricky Kej, Om Shanti. Sister Jenna is a trusted spiritual mentor to me as well, committed to bridging divides in societies and building relationships between global influencers. Just to note that Sister Jenna has a 5-day course starting this Monday, Evolving Your Consciousness with Raj Yoga Meditation. You can go to meditationmuseum.org to register for this class. Welcome, Sister Jenna.
Thank you, and Om Shanti, everyone. I can't wait for us to get right into it tonight.
Om Shanti. Wonderful. Next, please join me in welcoming Michael Sandler. Michael is the host of the massively popular Inspire Nation show and has been an incredible force of transformation for people all over the world. He has produced over 2,000 shows and has been featured on networks such as the BBC, CBS Early Morning, ABC's Healthy Living, NPR, and featured in such magazines as Men Health, Shape Magazine, Women's Health, and many, many more. Michael's best-selling book, The Automatic Writing Experience, written after his 2 near-death experiences, explains how anyone can turn their journaling into channeling to get unstuck, find direction, and live their greatest life. I had a chance to review in detail Michael's website, and one of these personal facts jumped out at me. Michael says, I love comedies, spiritual and animated movies. I can't bear to watch horror movies or movies with a lot of violence or negativity. And Michael, this is exactly why I launched See Good TV. So we're kindred spirits in this fact. And I'm sure most of you out there also share that same value. And last but not least, Bill Bennett, the director and producer of the series Facing Fear. Bill is an award-winning filmmaker and author. His most recent feature documentary, PGS, Intuition is Your Personal Guidance System, was very successful. In his home country of Australia, he's won the equivalent of the Oscar, the Australian Film Institute Award for Best Film and Best Director, and he has been nominated a further 12 times. His documentary work has been awarded 2 Logies, Australian's television highest award, and he's had films in official selection at Cannes and 4 films at Toronto. Welcome, Bill.
Thanks, Trina.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to start off by saying thank you for making this powerful and very timely series, and for making a selection of this series. I know there's about 26 interviews, and we have a sampling of shorter versions of these longer interviews on See Good TV right now. So my first question is, Bill, what inspired you to create this series?
Trina, first off, thank you so much for organizing this. It's just fantastic. And thank you for my co-panelists. You're an amazing bunch of people. Look, really what started off was that I was making this film on intuition, PGS, which stands for Personal Guidance System. And I came to understand that fear is the greatest obstacle to intuition. Then I started to think, well, what is fear? And do we really need it? And how does it work? And that curiosity really sprung off then into my desire to make a film so that I could understand what fear was. It's a very personal thing, really, to understand what fear was, how it works, do we really need it? And can we somehow kind of use it, in fact, to make our lives better?
Excellent. Well, I know your series is so informative. And since, the company is Conscious Good and See Good TV, consciousness is obviously critical. It's one of our most important topics in streaming. And so originally the topic of this panel was how facing fear is a necessary stage in elevating one's consciousness. But this morning I read a quote by Nisargadatta Maharaj that had me question that. He says, "I am all and all is me. Being the world, I am not afraid of the world. Being all what I am, what am I to be afraid of? Water is not afraid of water, nor fire of fire." So my interpretation is that as we awaken to who we truly are, and as our consciousness expands, our fears are diminished. I'd like to ask each of you to answer that question. What do you think comes first, facing our fears and then our consciousness is raised, or does consciousness expansion reduce our fears? Bruce, can you be the first to answer that?
Well, I'd like to try, because either way that goes, you still end up with the same result. And so that's the most important thing right there.
Right.
But we have to recognize, where does fear really come from? And fear comes from the fact that all organisms are endowed with something called a biological imperative. This is a drive that started with the first organism, bacteria, all the way up to humans are endowed with it. And I say, what is it? The drive to survive. So built into the system, long before even there were brains, there was this thing that says, I need to survive. And that means then you have to be very aware of what could threaten your survival. And until we're about 5 or 6, we really didn't have many real built-in fears. But around then, that's when we begin to learn things die, pets die, parents die. And then later, first we learn our parents died, then later it hits us, it's like, oh my God, we die too. And I say, so what's the result? And I say that once that's instilled, then we already know that our mortality is in question, and that we start to become alert and hyper-vigilant to things that are threatening. And this preoccupies us because it's not happening in the conscious mind, it's happening below that. Like 24 hours a day, this lower subconscious guide is saying, am I safe? Am I not safe? And it watches out for you. The thing that was really interesting for me, so I hope to get it done real fast, less than 1 million words, is that I, like everybody else, had fears when I was younger and try to get yourself through these fears. But there was the most important moment in my entire life. It was about 1985, and I was understanding the nature of cell biology. And I saw, as a cell biologist who was not spiritual, genes, chromosomes, proteins, okay. But I saw a mechanism that our identity is not inside our bodies. Our identity is received by a set of antennas, which are protein receptors called self receptors, receivers of self. And the signals are on the outside because the antennas are on the outside of the cell. At that moment, as a scientist and a biologist and also into quantum physics, it said, oh my God, there's an energy broadcast that I pick up. And Trina, you don't have the same broadcast, you have a different set of antennas. Everybody on this panel, everybody in this world has a different set of antennas. I said, oh my God, I can't die. I'm not even in here. I started to realize it's sort of like the analogy, I'm like a television set playing the Bruce show. The issue about that is if the TV breaks, we say the TV's dead. And then I go, is the broadcast still there? And that's when you learn you can get another TV, plug it in and tune it to the station and you're back on.
Amazing.
Well, I also realize this is true for us, that we are like these TVs, and when we're dead, our broadcast's still there. But if an embryo shows up with the same set of receptors that you have now, you're back in a new TV. It doesn't make a difference if it's male or female. That's the TV. It doesn't make a difference if red, brown, black, yellow, white. That's the TV. But
That's
what did I learn? I learned that I can't die. I'm not in here. And it was an instant moment. So it's like I went from not spiritual to spiritual in a minute because there was no question anymore. It was like, oh, I got it. But then I want to just say what the point of the story was, is the moment I saw it, I felt lighter than I have ever felt. And I realized what had happened is I lost fear, because I said, I can't die anyway. So I lost fear. I said, what was the weight that just went off of me? And I said, that's the biological imperative that has been working every day ever since you accommodated fear. And it's been working every day to watch out for you. And it uses this energy. It's like background in a computer. It's working in the background. You're not aware of it. It's all the time. But the moment I said, I can't die, the whole thing disassembled. Why?
Amazing.
There was no fear.
And that all that energy was released and to be used for enjoying your life and not being weighed down by that fear of death. It's an incredible story. I hope all of us are as lucky to experience that type of freedom in our own lives. So thank you so much, Bruce. Sister Jenna, what do you believe? What comes first?
Wow. I mean, what do I do after Bruce says I'm not in there? I mean, maybe I'd like to take us to a soul level. I think that we all had an origin of existence, and it was absolutely pure, peaceful, had no memories that it was needing to hold on to. And I think as the soul continues to journey throughout time, it experiences certain events and circumstances. And I feel that fear comes for me, something I've done in the past, I don't remember. And something is wired in my consciousness that you have to settle this, you know. You have to pay back for this. Either do it with love or do it with trauma or with tragedy. And I remembered one day I was shoveling snow. You want to hear a joke? So, so we're at the meditation center and I'm shoveling snow one year. And I happened to be sometimes naughty. So I picked up a snowball and I rolled it up and I pelleted one of the sisters. And they're like, oh, and then they turned around and they were going to pellet me with the snowball. And I just knew as I was shoveling that someone was going to hit me, they were going to hit me. But I turned around and I told them, you can't hit me, I'm the big cheese. Nobody hit me. Nobody hit me. But that moment in time was a big aha for me. And when I went into solitude, I said, is that where my fear comes from? Is it that I, as the living soul, I know there are choices that I made. They might have given sorrow, and it might come back to me, and I'm afraid of that settling. So I look at, the whole notion of fear that I'll get over it, and I know that if I can bypass the memory of what I've done at a soul level, I can open up my consciousness and my heart to God, and I can get addicted to the love, the sacred love that I feel in meditation from the divine, and it will remove my fear. And that's how I look at it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Michael, please join us in telling us what comes first, fear or consciousness?
It's a great question, and I'm so honored to follow both Sister Jenna and Bruce Lipton and see what I can add to this, because wow from both of them, although I'm not going to be throwing any snowballs here this evening. With that said, I see everything as God. I put that in quotes, whatever you want to call source, spirit, energy, what we're tuning into from Channel Bruce. I see everything as God and everything is good. It's all labels that we put on it. What this means is, to me, fear is a portal. Fear is a vehicle. Fear is a teacher. Fear is a tool. Fear is something that was biologically instilled into us by loved ones, and not so well-meaning loved ones maybe, by the tribe, by our biology, I believe actually so that we can learn to rise above it, so that consciousness can expand within us by experiencing this physicality. So I wouldn't label fear as anything to be afraid of. Instead, I'm going to steal a line from Ram Dass. Love you, Ram Dass. We get to snuggle up with fear, make friends with fear, almost make love with fear, invite fear into your life, not as make me afraid as I can, but when you lean into the experience. And I have had, it's not important for the story, I've had 2 near-death experiences, so the fear of death is no longer there. The fear of screwing up, that was my biggest fear. But when you lean into something, it opens up. You can explore it, you can see it, you can learn about yourself, you can learn the mysteries of the universe by leaning into the fear. So as the expression goes, what we resist persists. When we fight against fear, no, I can't see it. And that's what we do. We're reduced to, the 5 or 6-year-old, as Bruce is saying, when we get to that fear-like state. If we instead be the skydiver, and the skydiver is only terrified until the moment she or he leaves the door, then she's flying. That fear only exists. We've all been in a running race, a gym activity, heck, about to go on stage, and we've got butterflies. What am I going to say? What am I going to do? What am I going to say? What am I going to do? The thinking mind, the small mind, rather than the big mind. And then all of a sudden the mic is put before us, or the gun goes off, and it all goes away. We have leaned into that fear, and that is where we are living. That's where the game gets to be played. So we've got this backwards. What if fear is excitement in disguise, waiting for deliberate motion or deliberate action, as Anders Ericsson would say, just waiting for us to take action forward because of the fear. The fear is actually an energy. It's a tsunami. It's a pulse from the heavens itself to carry us forward to greatness. And to me, it is diving into fear that expands consciousness. Consciousness wants to expand. Whatever we want to call it, wants to grow. And so if God is, and that God, whatever we call it, is wanting to expand, then that fear is there to help us to expand. And that living source that is breathing us is able to expand through that fear as well.
Brilliant, brilliant. Wow.
Now I have to have fear following Michael because...
Oh, no.
Well, hold on one second, Bruce, because first of all, I just want to say the energy on this Zoom call is phenomenal. It's like nothing fear-based here. This is pure excitement and joy and connection. So I do want to bring Bill back in, our filmmaker. And before doing that, I want to let everyone know who is on this call that I'm going to ask a few more questions, and then we are going to open it up. So please send your questions in the chat, and we will try to address them. We're going to try to keep this to an hour-long event. So, Bruce, hold that thought. I want to get back to Bill and ask, has making this series dispelled any fears for you? And what advice could you give someone who is currently facing a calamitous fear?
Oh, crikey. I mean, how do I follow these 3 guys, hey?
Well, you have a great accent, so.
Gender neutrally. Look, crikey. What have I learned? I've learned some really fantastic things from Bruce, from an absolutely biologically stroke spiritual point of view, some huge things. This whole thing about true fear and false fear is something that sounds so obvious, but it's something that I didn't really think about until I started to talk to some of the people in the interviews. The notion that true fear is a survival fear and is a body-based fear, if you like, is something that had never occurred to me. And false fear is the fear that most of us live with day to day. It's imagined fear, and it's mind-based. Trina, I've now walked several Camino de Santiago's, the pilgrimage route way. And one of the big fears when you walk the Camino is, will I find a bed tonight? Because there's so much competition. There's only a small number of places where you can stay, and there are a lot of pilgrims on the track on any given day. And so what happens is that people walk with this sort of, they run, and they don't take in the beauty around them. They absolutely negate the spiritual aspects of the pilgrimage walk. Their whole fixation is on getting a bed that night. So fear drives them through the day. And I started to get caught up in this. And then I stopped and I thought, well, what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is that I don't get a bed and I sleep under a tree. I've got a sleeping bag. It's, you know, there's some nice trees around, some nice fields, and it's not going to rain tonight. And as soon as I started to realize that was the worst that could happen, the fear went away and I enjoyed the day. And so I didn't rush. You know, I took my time and I allowed time for contemplation, to talk to people and so forth. And then I thought, well, wouldn't it be interesting if I could take that notion of what is the worst that can happen, and you face that and you look at it bald-facedly and you be absolutely honest with yourself. What is the worst that can happen? And apply that to other points in your life. And interestingly, during the interviews that I did, that was a thing that came up with a lot of people as well. Advice to somebody facing a calamitous situation, both practical and spiritual, I think. Practical is ask for help. I mean, it sounds so simple, but a lot of us don't ask for help when we're really caught in something, you know, really quite sticky. Plan. But one thing which I've learned from Sister Jenna, in fact, is that when you look at it from a spiritual point of view, when you are in fear, it means that you have lost connection with Source, with Spirit. And if you go back to that connection and understand that you are guided and that there are, in the same way, in a practical sense, you can ask for help. You've got spirit guides and angels around you. Ask them for help as well, because they're there to help you. You know, I've learned that and I really believe that. And so that's really the advice that I could give.
Beautiful, beautiful, wonderful advice. I'm going to go back to Bruce. We ended Bill's sentence on the spiritual, and I'd like to ask Bruce a little more about the science. And in talking about the biology of belief and the power of positive thinking as an activity of the conscious mind, if the subconscious mind is programmed with beliefs and perceptions that are not aligned with the conscious mind's intentions, there is conflict. This is what I've learned from you, Bruce. So fear can dominate our subconscious, which is infinitely more powerful than our conscious mind. So how do we manage or overcome our subconscious fears?
Well, the first thing that's really important is to recognize that the conscious mind has a different function than the subconscious. The conscious mind is creative and has your wishes and desires for life. The subconscious is just programs, database. It's a hard drive in a brain computer. And unfortunately, the programs come from other people. And I go, because during the first 7 years of our life and last trimester of pregnancy through age 7, what do you need to do when you have a computer, a brand new computer? You go to the store, buy it, come home, start it, it boots up. And I say, now do something. And you go, no, I can't do anything. I say, why? First, you have to put programs in. The human brain is the same thing. It boots up in the last trimester of pregnancy, but you can't use it until there are programs in there. And I say, well, where do the programs come from? And this is how we do it. We download beliefs and activities by watching our parents, our siblings, and our community. And we get programs of behavior by observing all of that. The only problem, of course, is they don't have your wishes and your desires at hand. And usually most of them have issues in their own life that they just transferred to you because you downloaded them. So the subconscious and the conscious are completely different entities. This is just the subconscious is just a playback program, whatever it is. Conscious is creative, but conscious can think, and that's where the whole game falls apart, because imagine your body as a vehicle with a steering wheel, and I say conscious, when it's got its hands on the wheel, is driving you toward wishes and desires. Conscious, that's what it's, if I asked you what you want, it comes from conscious mind. And I say, but here's the problem, and that is conscious can also think. And he goes, so what? I go, if I'm driving a vehicle with conscious mind, I'm looking out the window. where I'm going. But if I'm thinking, then everything changes for a reason is this. I redirect the focus of consciousness, not looking out, but looking in. The answers are on the inside. I go, well, what if I actually am driving a car and I start thinking and I let go of looking out the window and observing it? And I say, it's okay. Subconscious is autopilot. It will step in, okay? But it will drive you according to the program that you got from somebody else. It's not your driving now, it's the program driving. Our life is driven by these programs because it turns out 95% of the day is the amount we think. And I go, well, that means that 95% of the day, the conscious creative mind isn't working. And then we live by the programs. And I say, well, what are the programs? Well, you know, Trina, as you bring up, a lot of these programs are fear. Be afraid of this, be afraid of that. You're not strong enough. You're not powerful enough. We get weakened by these programs and they come from subconscious. And the point about it is you have to step out and stop thinking and be present. And that's the moment you are present and not thinking is you have absolute control over the system. And that's when what happens when people fall in love. Their life is blah, 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 blah. And then they fall in love. And I say 24 hours later, it's heaven on earth. I go, what happened here? And the answer is very simple. When you fall in love like that, you stop playing the programs.
That's
and all of a
right.
sudden you are operating from conscious creativity. And when two people fall in love, conscious creativity made honeymoon heaven on earth.
That's right.
But once we start thinking, all those negative programs come to the surface, which were never there when we first met our partner. And now our partner has to deal with, well, where did that come from? Karen?
Well, I think what's so beautiful what you're saying is, you know, with my own practice, in meditation, I've now been chanting a lot more. And what I love about that is that I'm thinking less. I'm, you know, getting in connection with the subconscious and source much more effectively. So thank you, Bruce. Sister Jenna, I want to ask you about sort of what you're seeing in the world right now. You know, some of the restrictions from COVID have lifted, but there's still a lot of fear. I know you had a show, The New Normal. What are you seeing in your communities? What is the level of fear, and what can we do to acknowledge that some people are still very much terrified by the virus and what's happening in the world?
So the evening show that I do is called The Next Normal on our Meditation Museum channel. And have I seen anything different? I'd say no. I still see that as human beings, we're struggling to figure ourselves out. We're trying to do the best that we can. But I believe sometimes we're so stuck in old belief systems, like Bruce was sharing, that how do you squeeze such an infinite, powerful energy as soul into the belief that you're just a man or a woman, Christian or Jewish? And so recently I posted a quote that I realized in the early morning hours of my meditation, and it was so powerful for me. It said, you can't squeeze God in a religion. He's bigger than that. And then I thought about, I think the reason why we're still seeing that climate of fear and insecurity globally is that as souls, we are squeezing ourselves too much into a limited identity, which cannot last. And so if I begin to practice the breaking away of that idea of my five senses, you know, and begin to recognize the inner sense, the inner being of light, then there'll be change. So in terms of what I've noticed here in the metropolitan DC area, there's optimism. I think there are a lot of people who want to be better individuals. That means their fear is reducing. And there are some that aren't feeling very secure, which means it's just rollover memories of the past that they still haven't allowed love to heal. You know, when I connect to God to heal me, I basically ask this question, and I'd like to throw that out to everyone tonight. If you don't know how to relate to God or to good, then just ask yourself, what does love want of me here? And you'll have your connection, and your fear will start to leave you, because your infinite, unlimited sense of self, all it wants to do is to be free, to be unlimited. And once we can get used to that vibe, we will not only be spiritually free, but we won't even be thinking so much about this COVID climate anymore. We'll be thinking about how we can co-create a new world of awareness and consciousness. So I can't say I'm seeing a big difference, Trina. I know people say we'll never be the same. Of course we will never be the same.
Who wants to be the same, right?
Yeah. So that's my response to the question.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, sister. So Michael, I was going to ask you, this dovetails really nicely. I was going to ask you about these experiences that you've had. I mean, I was reading some of the things that have happened in your life, and I was like, how does he leave the house? You know, just because you've had so many accidents and near-death experiences. And I want to hear more about what you learned through those difficult times. And please tell us a little more about that.
Life is good. Life is good. All of this here to serve us, all of this juiciness, all of these challenges. So it was years ago before I renegotiated what I call my soul contract that I had 36 different hospitalizations or major injuries, including 2 near-death experiences. I got twin titanium femurs, twin titanium hips. I run like the wind. It's all good. But I wasn't listening. I put my ears out. I wasn't listening to spirit. And spirit first, as Louise Hay would have said, did say, it speaks in a whisper, and then spirit gets louder. And so our job in kind of this co-creational holographic experience is to listen to spirit, to find what I call the flow line or the bliss line, and to follow that and see where it guides us. And so when you get whacked with a 2x4, you don't say, thank you, sir, may I have another? You go, okay, I'm going to listen now. What does this mean? Where am I off track, off path? What can I learn from this and grow from this? And I like to reassign. So first big piece is gain awareness, whatever that means to you. For me, and what I teach is the automatic writing experience, because we're all scared of LA. We're all L, lost, and we're all B, feeling alone. We're scared in LA. Once we understand we aren't lost, we are on our path exactly where we're supposed to be. If we realize we couldn't be alone, we come from spirit, we are spirit, we're going back to spirit, we're surrounded by spirit. That changes everything. And then if we reassign meaning and say, wait a second, I don't have to have accident after accident again, but these are gifts. If we reassign meaning to everything in our life, then we don't go outside and encourage or say, all right, hit me with your best shot, cancel clear. We don't do that, but we go, wow, again, snow globing life, looking at the experience, looking and leaning into the fear, becoming an open-hearted warrior. What can I learn from this? What can I gain from this? How is this here to help me to grow and expand? So if I look at myself and the experiences, I'm not scared of going out the door, because every single one of them was here to serve me, was here for my highest good and the highest good of others, and has helped make me, I'll put that in quotes, because we really are all roses, individual roses on the bush of humanity. We are not individuals. There is no such thing, but help me to become a better, more conscious version of myself.
Yes. Wonderful. Well, I want to segue to a question from a member in our audience, because I think you could address this very, very well, Michael, given your experiences. This is from Allison Muse. Yeah. She says, I was recently attacked by a dog, and it was very traumatic. Not only the injuries, but mentally. I have noticed I have a low-level anxiety continuing throughout the day since it happened. I feel scared because I did not imagine something like this could happen. I feel somewhat unprotected. How can I use this experience to expand versus shrink into fear?
So it's a brilliant question, Allison, and send all my love your way. What I would do first is I'd continue to do clearing work, to me, on an energetic playing field, because there are wounds and blocks that we're going to carry, and there's probably a lot of layers to the onion. So we get to play with that. I've experienced PTSD myself. I was racing, trying to make it to the Tour de France as a racer in Europe many years ago, when a safety official waved me through an oncoming turn, crowd going nuts. into a car that had gotten itself on the race course. And that was my end of my career racing in Europe. And I had years of flashbacks and pain and wounds and going, God has forsaken me. There is no God. Later on, what I came to realize was that if I instead studied the fear, studied the wound, went into the playback that I was resisting, there was a gem inside of it. And so it's hard, Allison, but I would actually go into the experience when you're ready. Take your time. Don't rush things. Get yourself in a safe, grounded place first. Love yourself up. And then when you're ready and you feel safe and supported and secure, then lean into this and say, what can I learn from this? Because to me, there is an Allison pre-dog attack and there is an Allison post-dog attack. The Allison from before, to quote Dr. Wayne Dyer, you have died while you're still alive. The Allison from before is gone completely. The new Allison, the upgraded Allison, is who she chooses to be. So choose a goodie when you're ready and dive into it with everything you've got.
Beautiful. Wow. I think so many of us learn from Allison's experience with your words, Michael. So thank you so much. I'm going to take another question, and Bruce, I'm going to see if you can answer this for Leilani. She says that she has a fear of having a lot of money and losing it. She fears where she will sleep at night, and she fears something is going to happen to her sister Gigi. So these are very specific fears that Leilani is experiencing. What advice could you give her?
Well, the first thing to recognize is this: these fears didn't come from her conscious mind, they came from her subconscious life experiences, and that they're driving her instead of her driving herself. And this is the big issue, okay? And there's an unfortunate problem, I just want to add this, in biology. The difference between fear and love is the difference between the placebo effect and what is called the nocebo effect. The placebo effect is the positive belief that I'm going to be safe and everything's going to be coming out, I'm going to be well, whatever the technique, the pill, you think it was the pill, but it was a sugar pill, you ended up being well. It didn't come from the pill, it came from your belief in a pill, a positive belief. But then people always talk about, yeah, placebo, positive belief and all that. And I go, yeah, but you don't understand. Nocebo, negative thinking, is equally powerful in creating your life as placebo, but it takes you in the opposite direction. That's where medical prognoses really just unfortunately program people to go downhill, because they don't say, oh, well, everything's going to be great and you're going to be healthy. And they go, oh, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. And we have bought in our development that the doctor is a professional. So we give our belief to them. And if the belief is a negative belief, we will manifest that belief. We can die just from the negative belief. Mm-hmm. So the idea about it is this, you're afraid of failing and all that. The question is, can I change that belief? And the answer is, yes, I can change that belief. But I have to do an exercise to change the belief. I can't talk to myself because there's nobody in there to listen. But there are 3 ways, and it's self-hypnosis with earphones on at night with a new program playing in your subconscious, or I like it, fake it till you make it, new age idea that change the attitude. I'm okay. You have to project a positive attitude, and it has to be put into the subconscious. I go, well, that's what makes it difficult, because the conscious is creative, and you could read a book and go to a lecture or watch a video. You can just go, aha, and you've changed consciousness. But the issue that we're dealing with in subconscious, especially about the fear of life and losing money and losing your life privileges in this, the problem with that is that these are subconscious things that keep playing 95% of the day. Not that you want to think about it, but boy, it just keeps putting it in front of you. And until we change that, it is taking power away from us. Fear is victimization. I'm a victim. Versus empowerment, which is, no, I'm a creator. And to emphasize the science about it, just very simple, is that quantum physics is the most valid science on planet Earth. And the primary principle of quantum physics is consciousness is creating our reality. So now that I'm going to deal with consciousness, if I start to find myself going off into the fear, one of the things I can do if I'm aware, the moment I'm aware of it, is stop. Just stop, go do something. Anything other than to perpetuate this issue. I remember when a while back, before all the awareness had entered my life, I was more or less a manic depressive. And if in my lab, when things weren't going well, they just got worse. They got worse. And there would be a point where just everything was all screwed up. And then I'd have like two people, one me and one like, you're not good enough. You're not, you know, this, blah, 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 tearing me apart. One voice, and the other one is, oh, like that. And the most exciting thing happened in my life. And that was in the middle of one of these going downhill things, because I knew what the pattern was. A voice came from somewhere. I was the only one in the room. And the voice said, don't you have anything better to do than to listen to this stuff? And it was funny. So, I mean, that's what captivated me. It was funny. So I said, sure, I'd rather go see a movie. So I opened up a newspaper, found a movie, went to the movie, and that was the end. It stopped right there. But if you allow it to perpetuate, it will take you all the way down until you're just beaten to death. And this is a choice of consciousness, because the moment you're aware, oh, here's that problem, here comes that thought. It's like, you want to change it? Change it now. Because the moment you change direction, that conversation ceases. And that conversation is nocebo effect, because if you keep it going, physiologically, it's going to cause you physical damage in your biology.
That's right. I love that, Bruce. It's like having a little list of possible things you can do when you find that you're in that rut, you know, whether it's go to a movie, call a friend, you know, have green juice, whatever that is. So that's very helpful. Thank you. Another question from our audience. This is from Lorraine Hessen. Sister Jen, I would love for you to answer this for us. What is the role of action versus inaction in relation to fear?
It depends. I mean, everything really depends on where you are on the inside. I don't know if I know how to answer the question other than you have to check how you're feeling. And I know fear is a very uncomfortable feeling. It has been for me. But I think a part of me have accepted that I don't necessarily want to feed into it for too long. So sometimes the inaction could be a sign that I just don't know what to do. And then I can seek advice, I can seek wisdom from someone or talk to someone that I can trust. And it might get me activated to move forward. And then you've got the situation where sometimes the fear really just moves you because you have to move. You've got to get going. And the fear being so uncomfortable in you is also going to move you. I think for me the whole notion, and it goes back to the question before that Bruce also answered so beautifully, I've asked myself, why do I want to have these thoughts? Why do I want to think the worst about someone that I love or about my own existence? And I think when I do that, it helps me to open up a portal of honesty to begin to have an honest heart-to-heart conversation with the soul inside of my body and to determine, what do you want? Who are you? Why do you need to keep feeding that? Who hasn't gone through a challenge? Who hasn't had it rough and tough? But we've all survived it in one way or the other. And I think when Brother Bruce was sharing that when he realized he'll never die, that was it. The load was taken off of him. I get that. What I was thinking as well is, I don't want to live forever in sorrow or pain. And so what do I need to do to get out of that? And I go into reflection, I go into attention. I loved what Michael said, listen. Listen. When you become a very, very good listener, you can hear the quiet thoughts of your subconscious. They might tell you, don't move, or they might tell you, you must move. And it's when you listen quietly and purely, you will know exactly what to do.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, sister. Well, I'd love to ask Bill to join the conversation. And this is a question from Kim Soa. She said she has a fear of being misunderstood. She didn't think she had a lot of anger in her, but it popped up today when she was being misunderstood by her husband. And are things like this generally from childhood, or was something like a past life regression help pinpoint where these negative thought patterns have originated from? So Bill, if you want to answer that question from your own personal wisdom, or maybe from some of the other interviews that you have on Facing Fear, what could you answer for Kim?
Pardon me. Well, I've got a personal situation in my own family, which I can perhaps draw on. And certainly I've gained insight and wisdom from the extraordinary people that I have interviewed in the making of this film. But one thing that I would say is this, and that is that if you let go judgment, then a lot of that stuff goes away, because it sits often in judgment. And how do you let go judgment? Well, one of the things that I've learned from Paul Selig, who is featured in these interviews, is that we are all, I mean, he would obviously articulate it better than I, but we are all a piece of Christ, basically. And if you look at somebody that way, then how can there be judgment? And so it's I think if we can get to a point of neutrality, and Michael Tamura, who again is featured in these interviews, is very strong on this. If we can achieve neutrality in our life, then so much dissipates. And I often think about that and think, well, am I being neutral in my interaction with this person? And if I'm not, then I try to realign myself to that state of neutrality. And then a whole lot of negative stuff just goes away. So I hope that answers the question.
Beautiful.
Can I jump in on that a second?
Please,
because
please.
At the end of her question, she said, how can I help pinpoint where these negative thought patterns originate from? This is a very inappropriate way to seek an answer to this solution. Because what you want to do in that is like, well, who started that thought in my head? And then you go back and you live it again and you find out, oh yeah, they said that. And then you're living it again and you're just reinforcing it. Look at it this way. They were messengers, but you walked away with a message. The messenger put something in your mind, but now the rest of your life, this is the message that is playing. Is it important to go back and find out who put the message in? I go, absolutely not. Matter of fact, that misdirects your attention all the time, because that's not changing the message. That's just saying where the messenger came from. And so the most important thing is this, is that not wasting time to go backwards. Just say, what is my problem today? Is it a health problem, a relationship problem, a job problem? And then say, how can I resolve that problem without even going back? Because you're playing the same program over and over again. You want to change the program. You can't change the source of the program. And so a lot of people think, well, I'm going to go back and find out. And I go, that will not help. Because the idea is I want to change the program. Going back and reliving the experience and going through those people again exacerbates the problem a bit. So basically says, where's my problem? Let me change the problem. I don't need to go back and put blame on anybody for any of this. Thank you for being here, Sister Jenna.
Great advice. That was great.
You want to add to that, sister?
Great advice. He's
Okay.
so on the money, really, really.
I love this. Here's Maurice is saying, I am crying tears of gratitude up in here. This is electric. So much gratitude to all of you for taking the time and sharing your wisdom and your positive energy. I would love to, we have a few minutes remaining. I know people are still sort of typing some questions, but I would love just to kind of take one or two sentences each to say, what do you want people to leave this panel, this conversation, if they could remember one thing, hold it in their heart, put it up on their bathroom mirror and look at, what would you recommend that they focus on? Michael, can you answer that first?
Sure, be honored. And thank you so much for having us here, Trina. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You are love, you come from love, you couldn't be anything other than love, no matter what you did, no matter what you do, no matter what you try, no matter what you don't do. Let go of judgment, let go of any preconceived notion of anything. Live in this beautiful moment and do everything you can to live a life connected to spirit, whatever that means to you. Get in the bliss line, get in the flow line, dive into your life. As Sister Jenna was saying about listen, be present, and rock this world from this moment forward. Realize everything up till now, everything up to this point, as Bruce was saying, is story. And story is not important. Write a new story beginning now.
Fabulous, fabulous. Okay, woo-hoo, Michael. That was from Carol. Okay, Bruce, what would you like people to leave here with?
Well, basically, a simple fact, as I mentioned in science, quantum physics recognizes that consciousness is actually creating our life experiences. If we own this as a real true understanding, and then you get an opportunity to listen to your consciousness. That's how it happened to me the first time. I stopped at a traffic light, realizing that I might be late. And then I heard this talk in my head, oh, you're not going to get there. It's not going to get on time. You're going to be late. And I was thinking, who's saying these are all negative things? And I thought, once I hear these things, I have to say, no, cancel. That's not, I'm going to be okay. And because what I had to do is say, these runaway thoughts, especially, of course, the negative ones, take our life from us and put it into the power of that thought, because thought's creating. And if you can be conscious enough to hear your thought, then you're conscious enough to say, nope, change the story right now, new story, because I'm going to create something better. And that is powerful and true.
Yes, yes. Oh, so great. Okay, Sister Jenna, what are you leaving us with?
Wow. I was thinking that I need to ask myself a question. Am I ready to live a life fear-free? I think it's important for us to ask. And what the quote that I found earlier this week, that I can't squeeze God in a religion, took me to understanding that I can't squeeze my beautiful, powerful soul into just a name or a gender or a role or a title. Why should I do that? And so I feel that it's important for us at this particular stage of our lives to keep listening and keep having a very intimate, honest dialogue with your interior world and discern for yourself. Are you feeding that little part that Bruce was talking about, that part of his little language, the negative one, or are you feeding the one that chooses to be okay? And then by you discerning that, you will be able to take charge of, I don't know, to some extent the direction that you think your life is supposed to go. And of course, I'm going to tell you, love God so fiercely that absolutely nothing can be bigger than His love.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Sister. Bill, what would you like to leave our audience with?
Look, something very simple, I think, Trina. What I've come to understand is this: regret is fear in the past, that exists in the past. doubt is fear that exists in the future.
Mm.
Fear does not exist in the now. So in the present moment, if you can stay in the present moment, then you will stay without fear.
Brilliant. So simple, but hard. It's simple but hard, right? To practice. That's what practice is, right? I love this idea, and a dear friend, Sue, asked me this question a few years ago, and it had a very powerful effect. It was, what would your life look like if you were living with complete fearlessness? So think about that. And I just want to thank Bill for making this beautiful series, making it available, a small portion of it available on See Good TV. There are many other interviews and longer interviews of our esteemed panelists, 26 of the world's leading experts on fear management, 24 hours of interview content, looking at fear scientifically, physiologically, and spiritually. The website for the larger interview series is facingfearinterviews.com. And we have recorded this panel. We are going to be making it available on See Good TV later this week. So thank you everyone for being here with us this evening. And thank you for exploring the idea of courage and consciousness with all of us. So be well. Thank you again.
Woohoo. Thank you, Trina, Bruce, Sister Jenna, Bill, everyone.